Yo, what's up, everybody? I wanted to hop on and I wanted to provide additional perspective on why I think there's been so many players entering their name in the transfer portal. I think everybody has kind of had their own perspective, and those perspectives range on both ends of the spectrum on whether or not we believe that this level of freedom and autonomy that athletes have in the transfer portal is beneficial for both players and for schools. But I wanted to provide some additional perspective because I think there's an element of this that we're not thinking about or giving enough stock to, which is the social and emotional, maturity that players, particularly upperclassmen who have previous playing experience, who've played 2, 3, 4 years at any level of collegiate athletics, may be able to offer a program, right? And so I'm currently serving as an assistant coach at the Division II program in Missouri. And our coach, like most coaches, regardless of the level, has a preference for players who have previous collegiate playing experience. What I've come to realize is that that preference isn't as correlated to the talent and the skill set that those players provide as much as it's correlated to the social emotional maturity that those players provide programs. When you bring a 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old into your program, you're bringing in a young man who probably has had a ton of experience dealing with the adversities that are associated with being a collegiate athlete. And if you speak to most college coaches, they'll tell you the greatest issue that they've had in their programs has been the lack of social emotional maturity for handling adversity throughout the season. We are all collectively dealing with players who lack a level of maturity, who lack a level of resilience and anti-fragility, who lack a level of leadership and the ability and the willingness to communicate. All of those are social emotional skills that we want and prefer student athletes to have. And traditionally, most student athletes had that, or at least had the opportunity to practice those skills, because social media wasn't as prominent as it has been until now. Most young people had tons of experience being on all kinds of teams. Most young people have had experiences playing in recreational settings, AAU settings, high school settings. And so the culmination of all of these different experiences of being a teammate help provide them the social and emotional maturity that benefited them when they moved into collegiate athletics. That doesn't exist the way that it used to anymore, right? Most young people, particularly high school athletes, aren't being given the same opportunities to practice the social emotional maturity that high school athletes in generations before had. And so as we continue to evaluate and assess why there are so many athletes going into the portal, and more significantly, why coaches prefer to get players who've had previous playing experience, try to remember that. Try to think about the social emotional maturity that it takes to be a collegiate athlete, and particularly the kind of collegiate athlete that contributes to winning. Because I think that is really where this is headed and why the dynamic of the portal exists the way it does. Don't get me wrong, money matters, and the opportunity to chase money, it's important, especially when you talk about 6 or 7 figures. So I don't fault the players, and I understand why they're moving the way that they are. But I also understand why coaches have a preference. And so if you are a high school player and you come across this, think about that, And if you are a fan of collegiate athletics, consider this.